Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, the Weekend Games. It has been quite a bit of time. Winter is coming, or at least fall, and it has a name, school. This is my first year actually homeschooling one of my children, which turned out to be quite a bit of work, and not in the vein of board gaming. So it has been a while, and I do appreciate everyone who's chimed in and checked in. All is well. With that, let's just get to the news. All right, in the news, Stonemaier Games has, as always, been the board games equivalent to the Saturn line of automobiles, practically, with almost guaranteed success in every venue. They have begun taking, or had been taking pre-orders early September for a game called Tapestry. Now, Tapestry is a Civ game that's not generally like a Civ game. It's a strange amalgamation of civilization-like mechanics that doesn't have any real-world associated civilizations with which to directly compare. There are no French, no Aztecs, no Bohemians, no parallelograms, nothing. Anyway, it turns out that you can be part of this or pre-order this or could have pre-ordered this with the Stonemaier Champion program, which gives free shipping on games that you buy and advanced delivery. So for only $1 a month, I too can become a stoner, an elite group of several thousand people who want the games and want them fast. What's interesting is that from the time that I ordered the game and I got into Kickstarter mindset till the time that I received the copy was literally a week and a half. So I pre-ordered it and I got it a week and a half later. I was boggled to see how quickly they had it. They'd made the games ahead of time. You pre-order them, you get them. So all in all, I have played a couple games. I will be doing a review, but I'm not yet ready to speak on the matter. Um, with that, we get to the next one, which is Alexander Pfister, who is known for Mombasa and Blackout, Hong Kong, and Great Western Trail, is coming out early next year with Maracaibo, which looks to continue in the same vein as some of his meaty, mighty, awesome games, but in a Caribbean setting. And as you all know, I love piratey Caribbean adventures. Count me in. Um, and then another game that's coming out that was Kickstarted has a highly asymmetric rondel game called Merchant's Cove. That one has you fighting pirates? No. You're sailing the waters in search of adventure? Not again. Each merchant character has a different mini game, but it's all about you being in this cove as a merchant. Wow, mind-blowing. It's got a hodgepodge of a lot of different ideas and kind of, hey, cool, or hey, that sounds cool. I've been bit by that before, where the variety serpent that's just kind of like giving you a gimmick disguised as a chocolate fountain. But we will see. I'm keeping my eyes watching out for Merchant's Cove. And with that, let's get to my question of the week. So the question of the week I got was, do you approach games you get for free to review differently than games you buy? And I have to emphatically say, to put everyone's mind to rest on this deep subject, I have no idea because I don't actually get games for free, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Everything you see here, everything behind me, everything in my closets, walls, shelves, and attics, to my wife's dismay and my checkbook's glee and regret, are all purchased by me, and I like it that way. I've always felt like there's a value to being in the trenches, so that the money, you do associate a value. When you buy something, you're associating the value, saying, I am feeling like that's what I want, and this is what I'm willing to give up. And that adds a dimension of, I guess, respectability. That doesn't in any way, like, there are people who will get free games and they will use them and they will do reviews and whatever. That's great. Some people make a lifestyle out of it. They make a living out of it. Rock on. That's great for them. For me, though, in what I do and for this fun little, homebrew channel, no, I want to pay the same as everyone else that I would be talking with the game about. Um, yeah, no, I mean, paying for something means that you're going to evaluate it as you would any other consumer. And I think that adds a little bit of dimension so that at least I don't know, maybe you'll go like, hey, well, he paid the game same as me, so if he loves it, then, he found something to like in it, and he was willing to put his money where his gaming mouth was, large as it, hairy as it is. So that's the answer to my question. And thanks for asking it, and I'm glad to be able to share with you that no, I will buy every game I play. The journeyman is worthy of his hire. Anyway, let's get to my 3 games. Okay, game number 1. Extraordinary, ordinary pirates. Yet another pirate game. Can you tell I like pirate games? This one's a little twisty in that it is really a race. It is almost a linear or quasi-linear race from one side of the Caribbean to the other. And it's very light. It's for families. It's a family kind of thing. It is very much a journey with a slight card building or deck building aspect, but I would definitely not call it a deck builder per se. But it just arrived. It was a Kickstarter that I got. It came generally on time. It's by Glenn Drover, who I have several other of his games. And if you're interested in something sort of a family fare that you might like, there's something to this. I haven't given it a full-on blow-by-blow description, so we'll see what sales there are on it later. Next, we have a game I've been anticipating. I originally got the DVG game, War of the Worlds, which was meant to be more of a tactical strategy recreation of the actual book, the classic book. And this actually takes it to another step. This is a second invasion, so it recreates a fictional second creation where one side's playing aliens and the other side are playing humans. Now, this does add a deck building aspect. I wouldn't even call it deck building so much as it's deck reconfiguration on the fly for the purposes of tactical brilliance, but that's probably too big to put in a bullet point. I've given it a couple shakes. My vote is still out, but if you are interested in this, it will become available. Okay, Gray Fox Games does good stuff. It's definitely unusual, and we'll get into that when I do my review, and I will review it. And finally, we have a game I know people have been anticipating all their life. Star Trek Conflict in the Neutral Zone. Did you catch the name Flick? Conflict? It's a play on conflict. Yes, once I saw this, I decided I needed to have it, but I didn't really research it, so I have no idea what kind of a crapshoot this is other than my initial impressions, which I will leave for later. But as you know, everybody knows that the cerebral nature of Star Trek just demands a dexterity-based flicking game. So kudos, here we are. And with that, let's get to Alphabet Soup. Okay, as we've been going, Alphabet Soup, for those of you who are new, is when I go through my collection and I rate games in a variety of categories based on the first letter in their name. We've gone through A's, we've gone through B's. Naturally, surprise, surprise, we're on to C's. So let's begin that. What is the top of the line game I own that begins with the letter C? Okay, this was a tricky one, and I had to do the cheesy cop-out of giving more than one award because I could not decide between these two. If I had to give an edge to any game that I thought was just the top of the line for the letter C, it would be Combat Commander Europe. And Combat Commander Europe it's just amazingly, it tells a story in combat. It was one of the first games that really was a strategy game, but it was a strategy game that told a story and a tale that stuck in your mind well after you're done playing. Games have done that since, en masse, but this game continues to be one of the first examples that I saw that said, wow, you can go beyond just X's, O's, and blocks and grids. So the other thing, though, is that there are 2 other games that came so close that they just have to be mentioned. The other is Clash of Cultures with the expansion, which was the first civilization that was both approachable and meaty enough to suffice as a solid affair. If you like civilization games where you start off and you build up with your technology and you build up with your spreading out over a terrain that's unique every time, this has still remained one of the best. Granted, Civilization, the board game, the actual one, is probably still the pinnacle of actual true purist civilization games, but this one is so fun and so awesome that it had to be mentioned as top of the line. And finally, you cannot go without mentioning Churchill, one of the only 3-player games that I think does justice to being able to pull off 3-player combatants. Churchill takes the entire World War II era, and instead of making it into battles, it makes it into negotiations. It makes it into posturing. If you've ever read American Warlords, which is what I read prior to this game because it was recommended, and that American Warlords is probably the best game manual to really get you into the flow and mindset of how to play it. Churchill is still the top-notch best game for a high-level understanding of the intricacies and just the back and forth negotiation, the ups and downs and lows, well away from the actual battles that took place in World War II. Next, we have the bottom of the barrel, and this is a game that starts with C that I found to be the least exciting, and it was Carcassonne. Not Carcassonne, Carcassonne, which came out that I thought, wow, how could I go wrong? Well, easy. I bought Carcassonne, which turned into some sort of bizarre mishmash of card. It was junk. Didn't like it. Tried it out with a couple people and like, is this really that Carcassonne they were talking? No, this is Carcassonne. Ha ha. Moving on. Then there's the came out of nowhere game that just surprised the heck out of me and still remains one of the most pleasant experiences I've had, and that's Conquest of Paradise by GMT Games. I got it just on a whim. It turned out to be a game that continues to show up at gaming places and be played like laboriously and liberally. It is a unique and wonderful game that I have just been absolutely blessed to own and be able to play with many people. Conquest of Paradise, Polynesian warfare and expansion at its finest. Next, we have the Riches to Rags game. This is a game that started off awesome, but over time just kind of like fizzled, or it just it just didn't quite keep itself. And I had struggle with this because honestly, none of them really fit. None of the games with C were ones that I'm like, hey, it started and I rocked it, and then didn't. But I'd probably maybe give it to Court of the Medici, which the first few times you play it are just nasty. What you can do to make people hate you in a 50-card deck, this pulled off in spades, and it didn't even have any spades in it. I wouldn't say it goes to rags, though. I might almost have skipped this category. Over time, it gets a little predictable to the point where you're like, we know what's going to happen. Moving on. The Meaty Mighty Manwich game. That is the game that has the most packed into it, or was the most difficult for me to grasp, learn, and get good at. And that has to be Comancheria by GMT Games with the designer Joel Toppin. Now, this is a game that's extraordinarily good and extraordinarily unique. Reading through it, figuring out the turn flow took me literally months of going back to it over time in between other games, going, how do I grok it? How do I get this? But it is a sensational recreation, nearly a simulation of you as a fledgling, Native American nation just trying to make it as far as you can. I mean, it is brutal. It is edge of your seat. You could play, anything could happen, and most of the time the stuff that does is bad. So that is one that I would recommend to people who just wanted a real it was a really respectful understanding of what went on in that era for the Comanche tribes. Then there's the test of time. What game do I continue to play no matter what, years later, even after something else could have come along? And that's easy. Cold War, CIA versus KGB, has been able to fulfill a nice role as a medium time game, or like short to medium time game. Even my wife likes this one because it's you against someone else, and you're playing kind of a Cold War-ish like feeling. You're bluffing, you're trying to bid, you're trying to outmaneuver and outthink your opponent. There are 3 different phases of the game, and all of them kind of mesh together quickly, but well. They've done a Star Wars version, and I think since then or whatever, but this one, the original, just continues to be very intriguing to me. And the more you play it with the same person, the more you get into now I'm playing human versus human, not just game mechanic versus game mechanic. And finally, the comeback tour. What game do I really wish would be redone? And that's crossbows and catapults. Can you imagine what we could do today with crossbows and catapults? Oh my gosh, the years growing up playing that game and stuff. Like, you want battle, you want fun battle, you got it. That is the game. And finally, there's some honorable mentions, things that didn't make the cut, and I will add those in really quickly. As far as ingenuity goes, Cataclysm, another game by GMT Games, takes World War II and turns it into a sandbox that has as few restraints as possible. So instead of saying, hey, well, it's the Axis and the Allies, you still have to keep the very low and like the high level connections, but other than that, anything could happen. The game starts before war really breaks out, and you could literally not even have war, or if you do, it's very, very different than you would expect, all based on how you maneuver and position. It is a strange amalgamation, but it works really well to create a sandbox feel, like anything could happen. I don't have to follow the yellow brick road of historical World War II battles. Anything could happen. That's crazy cool. The Mona Lisa Award has to go to A Castle for All Seasons, which is a game I played and found wanton. But the board, the art, that just shocked. That's why I keep it around. I keep it around because I love the artwork so much. It is delicious. And finally, the No Right to Be Delightful, or No Right to Be This Delightful, has to go to Coimbra. This is a game I reviewed earlier this year that for some reason just does nothing new but does everything cool. And it's delightful, and it's bright and colorful, and I continue to like this every time I play it. It does wonderful things with the same tools that every other game before it has. And that's what we have for today. Thank you for joining me, and I will be doing reviews upcoming. I believe there's a review for Raiders of the North Sea in the hopper, and then I will be starting to review other things. I believe Tapestry will be the next one I review. So anyway, thank you again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.